This Thrive Loud episode is brought to you by Hinge Consulting. Success on Amazon hinges on well-executed strategies. Contact Hinge Consulting to learn about total Amazon channel management and to see if your business has what it takes to grow over 300% over the next 12 months. That's Hinge Consulting at hingeconsulting.co.
Brave amigos are we, brother to brother and everyone, a brave amigo. Wherever they need us, our destinies lead us, amigos, we're always together. Wherever we go with three brave amigos, then we'll be amigos forever.
Three amigos, El Segundo, California. You are very great. 100,000 pesos. Come to Santa Poco, put on a podcast show. Stop. The infamous El Stivo.
Wait, what does this mean, infamous?
Oh, Doug, infamous is when you're more than famous. This man, El Stivo, he's not just famous. He's infamous.
100,000 pesos to perform with this El Stivo, who's probably the biggest voiceover star to come out of Indiana.
Wow. Infamous. Infamous.
We are the three amigos. We are the three.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. Today on Thrive Loud, we bring you Hoosier native, a man with 30-plus years in broadcast and radio, and has been one of the most recognizable voiceovers for numerous companies and corporations. He has occasionally provided some voiceover spots for this podcast, although he's most commonly associated with providing the lead-in to a show hosted by two boneheads that yap back and forth about total fuckery. You've requested via text, email, social media, and even by sending a package laced with a suspicious white powder that set off red flags reaching the desk of the Postmaster General. Thrive Loud listeners, I bring you the Steve O'Brien. Steve, how are you today?
I didn't know I was going to have to be amazing. You know, you should have let me know that ahead of time.
Well, you are amazing. So if anyone who's ever listened to this show, I wasn't kidding. He's done some opening spots here. I've been told I have a pretty good sounding voice, and
Yes.
then I hear this guy. So the Thrive Loud listeners wouldn't believe this, but there is a man named Steve O'Brien. He is one hell of a voiceover guy. He's got an unbelievable story, I guess, for a long-winded career, even though he doesn't think he's amazing. So we've always wanted to let people connect with those that are affiliated with the show. And since Steve has graced the presence of these airwaves and even sending a very fun congratulatory message on our 100th episode and some funny openings making fun of the fact that, you know, Lou Diamond sounds like a motivational country music singer, something along those lines. Steve O'Brien, why don't you share with the Thrive Loud community a little bit about your journey? This is going to be a fun back and forth, I'm certain. You worked in radio for a long time, and maybe start from that and how this all led to a career of really using your voice to make a living.
You know, it's funny because the story of my life is stumbling into things from one thing to another, and that's how radio got into my blood. My dad is actually a pastor, and
Oh, wow.
People don't remember this, or a lot of people don't, but radio and TV stations used to sign off the air.
Right.
And so he used to have to go in and would record the daily prayer because they would sign right after they signed off or before they signed off, they would do a daily prayer. And he would record those at radio and television stations. And I used to go with him and hang out with all the broadcasters as a little kid. And I just fell in love with that. So then college comes around and my brother is going to go study business. And I had no idea what I was going to study. he and I were in the same grade. And I said, well, I'm going to go, I'll go find something to do. And I went off and I came across the broadcast department, and they had just finished a tour. So I asked the guy, his name was Max Seed. I'll never forget his name. I said, so did I miss the tour? And he goes, yeah. He goes, you interested? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I'll give you a personal tour. So for the next hour, he walked me around the broadcast department. And I came back to the hotel, told my mom and dad, I'm like, I know what I'm going to do the rest of my life. And they're like, okay, whatever. 32 years later, that's what I did for 32 years was radio. I started out as a DJ like most people. I worked in programming. I worked as a production director. And I found that my passion was working with audio, actually recording commercials, producing commercials, promos, these kinds of things for the radio station. So that's how I ended the last 10 years of my career, was doing that.
So, and I find this really interesting. Someone brought this to my attention. I didn't know this a long time ago. I have some friends who work in the media circles around television and radio. And the Midwest happens to seem to attract, or maybe it's just a feeding ground from maybe it's accentless, or I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I always think of like David Letterman came from the Midwest, and a lot of the major news media broadcasters also came from that part of the world.
Yep.
There is something about where you grew up and where you live that enables you to have a voice that seems to obviously sound great, which the listeners can hear here, but also that is very affiliated with media. Just talk a little bit about that. Or was it something you were ever conscious of, knowing that you actually do have a great sounding voice?
You know, I mean, I didn't come out of high school sounding like this. It develops over the years. Your voice deepens. All of us, it does. The preferred accent, people will tell you, for movie stars for the longest time was the North Atlantic accent, which was what Cary Grant had. He had that kind of, fakey sound. And then that changed in the 40s, and it became the Great Lakes accent, which is the preferred accent. Well, I live near the Great Lakes. I grew up in northern Indiana. So, and it's a very accepted accent throughout the country. I live now in central Indiana, and people start to sound a little more like Kentucky down here. But you're right; it is that northern Illinois, southern Michigan, kind of east Wisconsin sound that people really like because it's pretty neutral.
So you'd worked in radio for a long time, and then I know you made a move out of doing that to actually become an entrepreneur. Talk a little bit about, I guess, transitioning over and what you initially focused on in using your voice as your own business.
I had been, if you're going to be in a business like radio, people do it because they love it. And so a lot of times they have a side gig, and I was no different. I used to own a DJ company. I did that for a number of years and got tired of giving up my weekends all the time and needed a second gig. And at some point, I got fired in radio, which is common, very common. And I didn't have a plan B. And I'm like, you need to come up with something else in case this happens again, or better yet, when it happens again. And so I started doing voiceover because I enjoyed doing it. But I never thought, it's going to make a living out of it. It was always fun.
Right.
So I started doing that on the side. And I had a side gig for 16 years. And then after a while, it's like, I like this a lot more than radio. Radio's been good to me, but it's kind of like waking up and realizing your girlfriend's not as good looking as you once thought she was.
Yes, I totally get it.
It's time to upgrade. So that's what I did. I decided that it was time to move on to greener pastures and try something new. And it's not that I didn't like radio. And I worked for a fantastic company. I have great relationships there. I still have a key card to get into the building. So it was just, I needed to do something new for me. And that's when working for myself came up, and my wife was all about it.
So I want to ask this question. Do you remember the first, I guess, once you were on your own and you were doing your own business and you were doing voiceover work, do you remember the first spot that you did, or the first time that you got paid for that gig? I guess when it was officially your own shop?
I remember the first time I got paid. I had been doing freelance for years when I went solo. But the first job I had done, I'd met these guys at a recording studio, and they had, we exchanged business cards. I was in radio, and I get a call on a Saturday. He goes, "Hey, you ever do any voice work?" I'm like, "I never have." He goes, "Would you like to do some today?" I go, "Why?" Because I'm curious. He goes, "Well, we tried doing it, and it's really hard. And we thought you could do it." I'm like, okay. So I came down and was there for about an hour, and they said, "We'll send you a check." And I'm like, I walked out thinking, I'm going to get paid for this? You're kidding. This is fun. This shouldn't be a job.
Right.
But that's kind of where it all started. I was working in South Bend at the time.
So Steve, just so the Thrive Out listeners understand, you have probably done voiceovers, and I saw a list of this. Just list some of the companies and corporations and the type of voiceover work that you're doing so that they can get an understanding of, hey, these are the different areas where your voices help put money and food on the table.
So there's a lot of specialties in voiceover that you can do. It's not just everybody does everything, although everybody will do a little bit of everything. But I specialize working with corporations doing their business narrations, their e-learning, their training, their if they have a presentation for the board of directors. That's what I do, because I have a friendly but authoritative sound,
right?
that companies like. And so I work with companies anywhere from Mercedes. I've worked with Volkswagen. I've worked with General Motors, BASF, Siemens. Oh, who else? Cisco. I work with a lot of companies around the globe. In fact, I specialize in doing a lot of international stuff, mainly in Europe.
Mm. So here comes a fun part that I wanted to know. You've created, I guess, your own studio. Do you even need to leave the house to make a living? Because at the end of the day, you've created something, right, that you can record everything from wherever you are, but you've created a good spot at your home. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to leave, but if someone locally hires me and they want me to come to their studio, then I'm all about that. Whatever the client wants, I'll do that. I don't have to. I can actually remotely connect to their studio. But sometimes, and you've worked with advertising agencies, you realize it can be kind of a dog and pony show. You've got the producer there, then the voice talent shows up, the client's there, the ad agency. These guys, they sit down, they nest. They've got donuts, they've got coffee, and you're going to cut their commercial, and they're going to direct you for the next hour or so. And it's a whole experience. And so sometimes I do go to studios, and I like doing that.
I was going to ask this question just because there's a huge market in doing audio for books. Have you ever thought about doing anything like whether it's audible.com or all of this? Obviously, I know a lot of people are trying to get the authors of books, that actually do it, or if it's a topic. But have you ever considered doing that?
I've done a book.
Okay.
I didn't really enjoy it. It's really long. It takes a long time to do, and that's a specialty that I'm just not that proficient at it. It doesn't pay as well unless if you're on the staff of Doubleday or Penguin, then it pays pretty good. If you're doing Harry Potter, you're cashing in. But for the average book, it doesn't pay as well. I do like doing long form. In fact, a lot of what I do is long form, anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours worth of audio. And I love doing that. But a book can take a couple weeks.
I'll let you know that I'm in the process of doing the audio recording of my book, and it is hard as shit.
Yours is, I'm guessing, nonfiction.
Yes.
And so if you were doing a fiction, it's even harder.
Yeah, because you're doing multiple characters and different, voices. Yep.
And I did a fiction book, and there was probably 20 characters, and you have to keep track of those on a spreadsheet. And what you do is you develop a sound. You don't want to become a different person, but you create a different attitude. And so there's a phrase that you would use to get into that character. So if you're going to do an Irishman and you're actually going to do an Irish accent, I always think of the phrase sure and begorra, do an Irish accent, that's me bad, Barry Fitzgerald. But it's a lot of work. I don't think people realize doing those audiobooks, it's really hard. And I have the greatest respect for people who do it.
I will say this, the hardest part, and they ask a lot of people who, look, I am a speaker and I'm out there and it's trying to get my message and my voice across, except when you do the audio for your book, that you have to read every single word is exactly as it is. Yeah. And since you kind of know where the feel is, sticking to the script is very difficult if it's a nonfiction book. So
it sounds weird, but saying every word and saying it properly is difficult.
Yeah,
it is, because we have a tendency to be extemporaneous when we speak. Can't do that when it's a script. Well, looks like I picked the wrong day to give up the Nice Guys on Business podcast. That and sniffing glue. Not that there's a difference. For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Fill up your week with the Nice Guys. Side effects may include tingling, numbness, urinary incontinence, the need to watch the Kardashians. If you have an erection for more than 3 hours, call your friends to brag. The Nice Guys on Business is not for everyone. Consult your physician before usage.
There's something that's running through my head here, which is making me laugh, by the way, because it was what you had said earlier that, obviously that most people like, because you have this deeper voice that's kind of serious. So it fits perfectly for companies and corporations and a lot of their messaging and internally or externally, whatever it might be. And I keep thinking how ironic that is, because are you familiar with the late Leslie Nielsen?
Oh, yes.
And so now I know you are for multiple reasons, and one of it's just that you've read a couple of his quotes. Now, Leslie Nielsen was a serious actor, a really serious drama actor for many, many years in many movies. And then he came across the Zucker brothers and was cast into the movie Airplane. And obviously, ever since then, he became this dry sense of humor where he would say something and it was actually really hysterical and nuts. And then it led to the Police Squad, TV series, and then the Naked Gun movies. That isn't too far off from another way that most people are familiar with you, and that is that you are the voiceover for the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit with the listeners, because there is a lot of overlap on the Thrive Lad community and a lot of folks that listen to the Nice Guys. How did this come about? Your relationship in doing the openings for their show and all of these movie quotes that you read very matter-of-factly, but for those that listen to it, it is quite humorous. Maybe talk about how that all came to be.
I was working actually for a friend of a friend had a podcasting company, and he had a podcast talking about how to put together podcasts. And he hired me to do the intros and stuff for companies. And it was usually a one-off here or there. And I came across these two fuckwads and they wanted me to work for them. And it's funny enough, I said their name wrong. And I remember feeling just mortified and contacting them like, I can't, I'm so sorry. I'm an idiot. Let me do that. In fact, let me do a couple extras for you. And I think they were impressed by the fact that I just said to them, hey, I'm a bonehead. I screwed up. That they keep hiring me over and over again. And they'll send me a script of like 10 lines. And then I'll add 5 or 10 more lines. And I'll ad lib and stuff. And it's that performance part of my job I don't generally get to do. And after being on the radio for years and years and years, I kind of miss. So it's been fun to do that. And they'll send me stuff and I'm like, is there any way I can offend you guys? They're like, nope. I'm like, all right, sounds like a dare to me. Let's give it a shot, So, but as far as the Leslie Nielsen thing, the funniest thing is when someone takes comedy serious. So if you act serious in a ridiculous situation, you'll be funny every time. And Leslie Nielsen had that down. He's a great example.
And there are many of the quotes. By the way, we will intersperse this entire episode with a bunch of your famous reads, which will be part of the fun editing job, which we'll make Strickland do. So so that he can at least get involved with it.
But you have to say it like this: Strickland fucking Bonner. That's. This is Steve O'Brien saying congrats to Thrive Loud on reaching 100 episodes. Wait a minute. So let me get this straight. There's a guy out there named Lou Diamond who has a show called Thrive Loud, and he's got 100 episodes with amazing guests that are thriving each and every day. He never asked me to be a guest on the show. What's that you say? He asked, but I was too busy and that I thought it was some kind of a joke? Well, did he ask if I could do voiceover for his show? You said he got someone else to do the voiceover. Well, who did he use? Strickland Bonner? No, seriously, who's he using? Strickland Bonner. You're kidding. Strickland is a voiceover for one of the most popular business podcast shows? Seriously? Well, that's it. The world has officially ended as we know it. Hell has frozen over. I seriously need to rethink my professional goals. Thrive f***ing loud? Jeez. Strickland f***ing Bonner.
It was the best when we did that spot for the 100th episode of this show. We got a whole bunch from great guests who've been on the show. We even had Jackie the Joke Man came on, and he left a message and all this stuff, and then yours came through, and we were dying, and we couldn't believe it. We said we have to leave this one for the end, but it is much appreciated, and I think for the listeners who are listening now, I mean, now they get it, because I mean it is. Whenever I hear you speak and you are being serious, I'm waiting for the drop to happen. I'm waiting for the, and the nice guys on business or whatever you've come through. It's that Leslie Nielsen effect. So I don't know where it's coming. Surely you can't be serious.
My wife comes from radio, and radio people have this gallows sense of humor that you just don't find everywhere. And she always tells me when we're at a dinner party or something, she goes, Steve, not everybody gets your dry sense of humor, okay? They think you're serious. I'm like, well, maybe I was. Maybe not.
Oh, that's so good. I think one of my favorites, and I will make sure it's in the mix, because I think it's also one of Strickland's. You did something along the line of, like, you ran through all the famous Johnny quotes, or not Johnny. It was actually the Lloyd Bridges quotes from Airplane. Looked like I picked the wrong week to stop drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, doing amphetamines, sniffing glue, and the nice guys on business. And then you pause and go, like, there's a difference. And this is actually an interesting part. I guess the strange thing must be, though, because they sign off and say, Steve O'Brien, take us out of here. Mm-hmm. And I know that that's your stage name, your show name, and that's how people know you from work. Have you ever run into a situation where you were speaking to someone that then learned that you were the voiceover in any form or fashion, where, like, wait a minute, that guy does sound familiar. Have I heard you before? Has that ever happened because your voice has been in so many different places?
Yeah, it does. I was out having beers with some friends the other night, and one of the guys was like, so what do you do for a living? So I tell him, he goes, no, really, what do you do for a living? I'm like, I'm a voice actor. He goes, that's really a job? I'm like, it is. I used to be in radio, and he was an avid radio fan. I had no idea. And he's like, I grew up listening to you and I didn't even know it. I'm like, yeah, because I've been in the indie market for 15 years or whatever. And he's like, I didn't know you worked on that station or that station or that station. I've been listening to you for years. I'm like, I'm cool now, aren't I? And he goes, no, not really. No. Like, you're just disappointed in radio, aren't you? He goes, yes.
So I guess I've got a couple of questions I have set here that I love to ask all the guests that are coming on the show. This one's going to have a different spin, I guess. Is there anything you miss about being in radio in the spot that you're in right now? Obviously, look, you've been doing this for a while. I think since 2001, you've had your own voiceover business. Has it been that long, I think? Or is that correct?
I've only been doing it full time almost 5 years.
Gotcha.
So I'm still, and I guess in a sense, a newbie in that way. I've been doing voiceover for 20,
Right.
but you don't bathe every day in this business, and I kind of miss that,
Mhm.
But other than that, no, I don't miss a lot of it. I see my friends from radio all the time. We go down and I go and have lunch with them. I went downtown Thursday and had lunch, and then I went down Friday and had lunch with another friend. So that's what's cool about, I think, any business is the people that you meet and that end up being not only your friends, but also your inspiration in a lot of ways. So I get to still see them without seeing all the other people I really didn't want to see in the beginning. So.
Very true. Steve, I love asking the guests this question, and that is, when you have trouble thriving, who or what do you turn to get back on the thriving track? A practice, a person, something that gets you when you're having that off day, that gets you back where you need to be?
I was a big fan of this SMART goals system. I have a system that I put together, and it's my roadmap, my business plan. And so when things start to go a little south, and they do, it happens to everybody. Things will get slow or whatever it is. I go back to that and I look at it and I go, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? And I start checking it off. 9 times out of 10, I'm already doing everything I need to be doing. So then I have to do something new? It's almost never a performance issue, I think, for most people. I say performance because of what I do, but that's true with any business. I don't think it's performance-based. It usually means you need to extend your clientele a little bit more. So maybe I'll market a little bit more than I usually do, I'll up my auditions by 10% or whatever. But that's kind of how I handle it. When I get a little nervous or whatever, I get busy, and that's always comforting to me to get busy because I like checking things off a list.
I like it. I like it a lot. Let's do this first because I have some fun stuff set up for this conversation here, and right. I'm enjoying all this. So give me all of the plugs on where people can find Steve O'Brien if they're interested in seeking out your services as a voice actor.
Number one place is my website, Steve O'Brien, VO as in voiceover.com. They can email me directly, steve@steveobrionvo.com. And those are the 2 best ways to get a hold of me. You could call my agents, but then I got to give them money too. Just call me. They're paid enough. They're doing fine.
Oh, that's great. Okay. So this is an interesting thing that I wanted to hear your take on this because you do a lot of voice work, and I found this really interesting. I spoke to a famous actor who shall remain nameless, and this actor actually was on a television show and very rarely watched himself on the program. He would do his work and constantly be focused on the work, but didn't actually watch the finished product, which I found hard to believe. Your voice is in lots of different places. Most notably, it's on just about every weekday on the Nice Guys on Business. Do you listen in to your work and some of your voiceovers more frequently than not, or maybe in a hidden place, or just try to understand your listening habits to your own work?
I never listen to my stuff. Never. And I don't. I'm on a radio station in town I'm the voice for. And I never listen to it because I don't want to come on. I don't want it to come on and hear myself. Now, I tell all my friends, oh, yeah, that's the only station I listen to because I'm on there. But I rarely listen to it. If my commercials or something comes on TV, I was in Florida and I had something come on TV and I was like, there's a cringe factor, that no, I don't want to listen to my stuff. I really don't.
And is it because you don't want to hear yourself? I mean, because I will tell you this, and I know this from speaking to many different people who are in the podcast world or an audio world. They hear your voice and they go, God, that guy sounds good. So what is the repulsive act that's going on in your brain that won't let you like what you hear? Or is it just the uncomfortable feeling that you're out there? That's what I'm trying to understand.
It's a self-loathing thing is probably what it is, but more than anything, it's just being overly critical. I hear something, I'm like, I was on vacation in Colorado and I heard some stuff I was doing on a TV station. I'm like, my wife was what's wrong? I'm like, oh, I came on TV. She goes, how'd it sound? I'm like shit, just like I thought it would. I could have done this better, She's like, I'm sure it was just fine. But no, I never want to, the artist never wants to see his painting, and the voiceover guy never wants to hear his voice either.
There you go.
Yeah.
It is interesting. I will say this, and I do. By the way, I think it might be what's called a sign of always wanting to do better. And like I think what you should know, just from those that listen to you, your voice is ridiculously good. It's always on point, and this, the whether it's for a regular professional spot or whatever, we know it's a lot of effort to put that stuff in there, and I think. That's probably just the inside voice saying, I want to keep doing it, or I want to keep thriving better, as opposed to hearing it and then, getting yourself down, I guess. But I will tell you, I can't find anything wrong with anything you ever say. So we'll listen. I can literally go back and they made an episode on The Nice Guys of just the drops, and I could listen to every single one of those movie quotes and just laugh. So just let it be known, and to the listening community, the Thrive Loud listeners, or any other nice guys that are listening to this particular episode, dude, this is a kudos to you for all that you do, because it really is impressive and very much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right. So now that we've made Steve blush, the signature question on Thrive Loud is going to have two parts to it today. So I ask every guest that's on the show, Steve, what is your all-time favorite movie?
Oh my gosh. Shakespeare in Love.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I love that.
Is it really?
Yes. All-star cast. I think it has some of the cleverest lines, how they work Shakespeare into a lot of the lines. He's like, the show must go on.
Right. That's right. Oh my goodness.
I could watch that over and over. It's my daughter's favorite too.
That movie's got a kind of a great story from the past, but also a little bit of a warped story. You remember they were the ones that that movie won Best Picture over Saving Private Ryan. Yeah. And which, by the way, as good of a movie as Shakespeare in Love is, this is not a shot at that movie. It was a statement by Hollywood that year that they wanted to be all about the independent films. And crazy enough, that movie was Harvey Weinstein's movie. And a lot of the, Hollywood has a little bit of a, gulp in their throat with all of that. So just a random piece of trivia. And I can't believe that's your all-time favorite movie, but it is a great movie.
I love it. Yeah.
Okay. So now you have had the pleasure of reading many movie quotes. And a lot of that for the openings and the spots for the Nice Guys on Business, which are great, by the way. And it's such a creative way to open or close a show or whatever it is. Did you have a favorite one that you recorded?
No. I mean, the funniest things we did a lot of times didn't get on the air, but at least I don't think they did. I can't imagine they did. Let's put it that way. But no, nothing comes to mind, because here's the one thing. Once I do something, I forget it. I have no memory whatsoever. So after I do it, I'm done. I forget it and I've moved on to something else. But no, I can't think of anything that really. Oh, the one thing I did do was the coffees for closers. I was doing that whole speech for them one time, and I thought, yeah, that was a lot of fun, because I love that movie too.
Glenn Ross is just talk about great cast, great actors, and just quality yelling. I love when Rome, played by Pacino, comes in and he goes after the head of sales, who was Kevin Spacey, just completely ripping him for, botching the relationship with the client. Having managed and been a top salesperson in my career, and having to manage salespeople, which is a very challenging job. I've been managed by people like that. And I think that scene often just you put so much effort into doing the craft of selling, and trying to connect with the customer, and to have somebody kind of spill ointment in it. And that passion is just so well done. The whole movie is just brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Steve O'Brien, I normally would say take us out of here, but I got to tell you, this has been fun, and a personal fun for me, because I know when I hear my voice and people tell me I sound good, I go, yeah, but I'm no Steve O'Brien.
Tell them you're better looking. That's all that counts.
Yes, well, it could be. The combination of the two would be that way. But anyway, man, thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud. This has been a true pleasure.
My pleasure, and it's always fun to be on the show.
Hey, man, thanks again. And to all the Thrive Loud listeners out there, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.
Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond. Wait a second. Lou Diamond? Sounds like a motivational country singer if you ask me. Lou Diamond sounds like a fluffer at your local theater, if you know what I mean. The Nice Guys on Business are professional podcasters. Please do not try this at home. It may seem simple, kids, but lots of people get hurt in the process. Void where prohibited, including Mexico, Puerto Rico, Fredonia, or your in-laws. The Nice Guys on Business are not responsible for any claims of liability or any guarantee that these two morons know what they're talking about. There is no promise that being nice to people will help your business, but calling people assholes, dumb, incontinent fuckwads will definitely lose you business. For any and all claims, shit in one hand and wish in the other, and see which one fills up first. Thank you for listening to the Nice Guys on Business podcast. I'm Steve O'Brien.